What's good, everybody? Rhetorical Question Live. My name is Heavy Bree, and welcome to my channel. This is your 828th time on my channel. Welcome back. Appreciate every single last one of you guys who watch the channel, who like the videos, who leave comments, who subscribe, and share the videos with people. And this is a good video to share today. If you are a trucker, or you're brand new to trucking, or if you know somebody who wants to get into trucking, this video is going to be a little bit more informative to my other videos. Usually my other videos, I'm going on long rants about whatever, but today I want to be more educational and put you on game to something today. And today I want to talk to you guys about this thing called hours of service, or HOS. And you're probably wondering, Heavy, what's HOS? What's hours of service? Well, hours of service is the time that we as truckers have to abide by in accordance with DOT regulations. Which is in short that's how many hours we're allowed to legally work within a week. And every truck driver has 8 days to work 70 hours. So within 8 days, we're given 70 hours to work. So let's say you started working on Tuesday. You won't get back hours back onto your clock until Wednesday. But we'll get into that later in just a minute. Now with the hours of service, we have 4 clocks. You have your break clock, your drive clock, your total shift clock, and your cycle clock. The first clock I want to talk to you guys about is your break clock. Now the break clock is how many hours you are allowed to drive before you have to take a break. And you are allowed to drive within one shift. You are allowed to drive 8 hours before you have to take a break. Now, let's say you've been driving consecutively for 7 hours. You've made some stops, but you haven't stopped for 30 minutes. If you made stops, but those stops weren't for 30 minutes, then those don't count as breaks. You have to take a full 30-minute break before you are allowed time back onto your break clock. When you stop for 30 minutes, your break clock will go back to 8 hours. Now, if you've been driving, and you haven't been taking 30-minute breaks, and you go over those 8 hours of allotted drive time, then you will be hit with a violation. And you don't want no violations, because if you get violations and you get pulled over by DOT or by Highway Patrol or by the police or by any law enforcement agency that regulates truckers that want to look at your logs, they look at your logs and they see that you had a violation, then that could hurt your record and put points on your records. We don't want points on our records. You don't want any points on your records, ladies and gentlemen. That's what's gonna mess up your chances of getting promotions or getting hired at better companies and all that good stuff. All right, so the second clock I want to talk to you all about is your drive clock. Your drive clock, it gives you 11 hours of driving within one day. Now that's how many total hours you're allowed to drive in a day. Now the break clock says you're allowed to drive for 8 hours before you have to take a 30-minute break. The drive clock is the complete amount of time you are legally allowed to drive within a day. Now, you're not driving 11 hours straight or 8 hours straight. You can, to break it down, I break it down like this. Let's say you drive 3 hours, then you take a 10-minute break. Then you drive another 3 hours, and you take a 10-minute break. Then you drive 1 hour and you take a 30-minute break. You get 8 hours back onto your break clock, but you still got about let's do some math real quick. That's 7 hours. So you still got 4 more hours to legally drive while your clock is still going and everything. So that's what the drive clock is. The next clock I want to talk to you about is your total shift clock. And your total shift clock is a 14-hour. It has 14 hours on it, and it is activated as soon as you go on duty. As soon as your duty status is on duty. As soon as you go on duty, and as soon as you move this truck, and the truck goes over a certain speed and starts moving, that's when your on duty status is activated, and your 14-hour clock is activated. And from the time that you drive until the end of the day that you're done driving, that clock is still going to keep ticking down. So, but however, here's the thing about the 14-hour clock, about your shift clock. If you drive and then you stop for 8 hours, the clock will stop ticking. I don't know. Some ELDs will they usually have it where if you stop for 8 hours, then the clock will stop ticking. But odds are you're probably not it's probably gonna count down until it runs out of hours and everything. Now if you have drives. Sorry, my bad. I don't know. My brain went somewhere else. I wrote all this stuff down, but I'm also kind of just freestyling this and everything. But let me just break down to you guys how the 14-hour clock works. So let's say if you've driven for about, let's say you have 4 hours left on your drive clock, right? You have 4 hours left on your drive clock. That's the 11-hour clock, and then you have 5 hours left on your total shift clock. If you stop somewhere to get unloaded, or to get unloaded, or to get loaded, if you stop at a shipper or receiver to do some stuff, your drive clock might have stopped. Your cycle clock might have stopped, but your 14-hour clock is still going to keep ticking down. It's going to keep ticking. So if you have 5 hours on your drive clock, you have 4 hours on your drive clock and 5 hours on your shift clock, and if you've been at that shipper for 2 hours off duty or in sleeper berth, and if you've been there for 2 hours, you now have 3 hours left on your on-duty clock and 3 hours left on your drive clock. But however, you don't lose time on your cycle clock. You just lose time on your shift and your drive, because even if you only had 4 hours, if you had 4 hours left on your drive clock, it's affected by your 14-hour clock. So however many hours is left on your drive clock, on your drive clock, is usually affected by what's left on your shift clock. It sounds confusing, but I'll give you guys an example in just a second. But first, I'm going to talk to you guys about the cycle clock. The cycle clock is a 70-hour clock that shows how many hours we are allowed to work within a week. So the 70-hour clock is how many hours we truckers are allowed to work within an 8-day period. Now the 70-hour clock will only count down whenever you are on duty. Whenever you're on duty and whenever you're on duty or you're driving, that's when your cycle clock is gonna click down. And your cycle clock has 70 hours on it within an 8-day period. Now, excuse me. If you want your cycle clock to reset, your cycle clock resets after you take a 34-hour reset, which we'll get to in just a second. Well, we'll get to that pretty soon. So here's how this works, okay? If you have 70 hours, if you are on duty, if you're on duty, not driving, or if you're on duty or you're driving, that 70-hour clock is going to click down. However, if you go off duty or you go into sleeper berth status, then that 70-hour clock is not going to cut down. It's not going to count down. Okay, in off duty and in sleeper berth, the two clocks that will not run are your drive clock and your 70 and your cycle clock. But your shift clock will still count down. Whenever you go on duty, your shift clock will still keep counting down until 8 hours have passed or until the clock runs out. So it'll either run out until 8 hours have passed or until the clock just counts all the way down. So the next one I want to talk to you guys about is your 10-hour resets. So after a whole work day, if you've worked a whole day and then you shut down, you go on off duty or you go on sleeper berth, then you are allowed 10 hours of uninterrupted rest. That means when you shut down for the day, when you're off duty, or when you're off duty, or when you're in your sleeper berth, the one I'm sitting in right now, then that's when you are allowed to get 10 hours of rest. And after 10 hours of rest, you get time put back onto your on duty and your drive clock. So the 34-hour reset is when you go off duty or in your sleeper berth for 34 hours, 34 consecutive hours. That means 34 uninterrupted hours. So 10 uninterrupted hours is your 10-hour reset. Is your 10-hour reset, and your 34 uninterrupted consecutive hours is your 34-hour reset. Now, 34-hour reset, when you have 34 hours in off duty or sleeper berth, your 70-hour clock will automatically reset. Okay. And when you're off duty or in sleeper berth for 10 hours, if you have time left on your clock, on your cycle clock, you will get back like all the time you will get back all of your time on your drive clock or on your shift clock. So just a quick little recap. So the hours of service is what we use as truck drivers to measure how much time we are allowed to work within a given week, within an 8-day period. Within an 8-day period, we are given 70 hours to work within an 8-day period, and we have 4 clocks that affect this time and everything. So when you're on duty or you're driving, like anytime you're on duty or you're driving, that will affect the 70 hours in your cycle that goes down. So if you have about 4 hours left on your cycle clock, then you have to wait 34 hours before you can get hours back on your full shift clock. Now there is this thing called recaps, but I want to talk about that in like another video, because I've already gone over the amount of time that I wanted for this specific video. You know, I know a lot of us out here nowadays, in the age of YouTube Shorts, Instagram stories, and TikTok, a lot of our attention spans aren't really like geared towards long videos, especially with a goofy looking guy, you know, stammering in the video and all that. So later on I'll probably do like some shorts, break these videos up into shorts and explain to you guys, you know, and quickly on what each clock means when it comes to hours of service. Oh, sorry about that. Sorry, it wasn't a glitch. Your computer is fine. Your phone and your computer is fine. Like, I just had like a brain fart. But anyway, yeah. But that's what hours of service is. It's the amount of hours we're allowed to work in a week. There are 4 clocks. The break clock, which affects how much time you are allowed to drive before you have to take a break. Your drive clock, which is the 11 hours that you are allowed to drive within a day. Your shift clock, which is the 14 hours you are allowed to work within a day, and your cycle clock, which shows how many hours you're allowed to work within a week, which is 70 hours. And in the next video that I do, I'm going to talk about recaps and how your recaps affect your drive clock, and how you can use your recaps to maximize your time while driving. So thank you guys all for watching. I hope this video was informative. If you know somebody who's in the truck driving, and like you want to share this video with them, and they're brand new to truck driving, or they want to get into truck driving, you can share this video. You know, if you like this video, smash the like button. You know, leave a comment if you hated it or if you loved it, whatever. Appreciate you guys for watching it. Peace and blessings, and I hope all of you guys have a prosperous day.